As the village buzzed with life, Ilara found herself retreating into the protective embrace of her garden, a sanctuary blooming with vibrant flowers that seemed to mock her solitude. Each blossom danced in the breeze, vibrant colors swaying harmoniously while the sun cast a golden hue, illuminating the sorrow that nestled deep within her heart. The garden had once mirrored her hope, a place where dreams took root and flourished. But as the seasons turned, it became a reminder of unfulfilled yearnings, each petal a whisper of what could have been. While others reveled in the joy of family and kinship, Ilara often squinted through her tears, witnessing a world where laughter bounced from house to house, an echo of what had remained tantalizingly out of reach. The village square became a battleground, where she instinctively sought refuge from the judgments that dripped like poison from the lips of her neighbors. Among them, the mothers would gather, their tales of sleepless nights, and delightful chaos spinning a web of connection that Ilara could only observe from a distance, a patient bystander in her own life. They exchanged knowing glances, their eyes glittering with the glow of shared experiences, while Ilara stood on the fringes, like a solitary star dimmed in a constellation. But silence, while often heavy, cradled a spark of defiance within her. It whispered promises she dared not acknowledge, but could not entirely dismiss. For every day that she lingered in the shadow of expectation, a tiny ember of rebellion ignited in her heart. Fueled by bittersweet determination, she began to transform the edges of her pain into something vibrant. She volunteered at the village school, immersing herself in the world of children, their laughter infectious as it rekindled her fading spirit. With each small act of kindness, she discovered a new form of motherhood, one far removed from the traditional roles cast against her, but profound in its own right. In the evenings when the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of lavender and fiery orange, Ilara found herself leading stories under the old oak tree. Children from the village flocked to her, captivated by her tales of bravery, adventure, and magic. The realm she conjured with her words enveloped them in a warm embrace, filling the spaces of their little hearts with dreams and inspiration. Ilara no longer felt like an outsider. Instead, she became a beloved figure among them, a storyteller, a guide, a nurturing spirit for those who craved imagination beyond the bounds of their daily existence. As whispers about her continued to swirl, something remarkable began to take shape within the very fabric of the community. Slowly, the ridicule morphed into curiosity, eyes that once held scorn transforming into expressions of admiration. They watched as she sowed seeds of imagination and nurtured the young minds of the village. Ilara may have lacked a family of her own, but in her unfolding journey, she discovered something amazing. She was never truly childless. She was simply a mother to many. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets of the village, and Ilara stood at the edge of the marketplace, surveying the lively scene. It was a tapestry woven with laughter, children chasing one another, vendors shouting their wares, and friends embracing amidst heaps of brightly colored produce. Yet her heart was heavy with trepidation. The air, fragrant with ripe fruit and baked goods, felt more like a reminder of her isolation than a comfort. Each smile shared, each jovial shout, seemed to echo the silent accusations that had begun to fall upon her, whispers of doubt that gnawed at her spirit. Ilara pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, a fragile shield against the chill that seeped in from the growing shadows. It was a familiar ritual to stand on the sidelines, watching others engage in the warmth of community. But today, the weight of judgment felt particularly pronounced, as she caught snippets of conversation that stung like winter frost. "What do you expect from her?" one woman remarked to another under the guise of casual chatter. "She's always been so distant." Ilara swallowed hard, the bitterness rising in her throat as if every word was an arrow aimed squarely at her heart. For weeks, Alara had begun to piece together the transformation of friendship into something altogether uglier. She had once been a part of the very fabric of this village, the confidant who listened to secrets and celebrated their joys. Now she stood as an outlier, an embodiment of perceived failure. The whispers she had once brushed aside now wove tightly into her thoughts, rattling her confidence like dried leaves in an autumn storm. "She's not fit to be a mother," they seemed to chant in unison, the battered remnants of her self-worth crumbling under their weight. But beneath the encroaching despair, something flickered, a stubborn ember refusing to extinguish. If they needed a definition of her worth, she would show them they were wholly mistaken. She would no longer allow their doubts to dictate the narrative of her life. Alara felt the persistent pulse of hope stirring deep within her, each beat echoing with the promise of possibility. Determined, she decided to channel this newfound resolve into something tangible, something that would redefine her existence. Instead of retreating into the shadows of shame, she envisioned ways to contribute, to reclaim her place among them on her own terms. Volunteering, mentoring, becoming a beacon for those in need. The options unfurled like petals opening to the sky. As she turned from the marketplace, a plan began to take shape, slowly dissolving the bitterness clouding her heart. Where they saw a hollow shell, she would reveal the woman who walked with strength, a flicker of defiance igniting in her chest against the whispers that had haunted her. Alara held the weathered book delicately, as if it were a fragile winged creature that might take flight at any moment. The garden around her was alive with color, the sun casting a warm glow over the petals, swaying gently in the breeze. Yet, in that cocoon of beauty, her heart surged with a newfound urgency. Skimming her fingers over the ancient text, she felt an electric pull resonating with her very soul. This was no ordinary book. It was a vessel of empowerment, a tapestry woven with the dreams and struggles of women who had long since turned the tide of their lives. The stories within its pages became Alara's guiding stars. She found herself captivated by the tales of women who defied society's narrow definitions of what it meant to be strong. There was Serafina, who had wielded a sword as deftly as she had tended her father's fields, challenging the roles laid out for her in a world that sought to silence her. And then, the poignant narrative of Amara, whose voice became a beacon in the darkness as she gave rise to a movement that demanded justice for those reduced to whispers. Each word, each passage, ignited a flicker of light in Alara's chest, illuminating possibilities hitherto concealed by the mundane routine of her days. With every story she absorbed, Alara found herself piecing together fragments of her own identity. The seeds of yearning she had buried deeply beneath the responsibilities of motherhood began to sprout, reaching towards the sun. She started to envision a life where she could claim her autonomy, where ancient knowledge could intertwine with her desires. The notion of herbal healing tugged at her, an art she had always admired from afar but never pursued. The thought of crafting remedies from the very plants she lovingly nurtured in her garden sent ripples of excitement through her. Determined, she ventured into local markets to seek out herbs and oils, each trip becoming a treasure hunt for new ingredients that would allow her to experiment with natural remedies. The vibrant scents filled her senses, fueling her enthusiasm as she began to sketch out her concoctions, inspired by the wisdom of those women from the book. Lavender for calm, chamomile for comfort, rosemary for clarity. Each herb felt like a thread connecting her past to her present. In the quiet hours, as her children nested in their dreams, Alara took to the garden, her sanctuary, to practice her newfound passion. She would gather fresh blooms and herbs, creating fragrant bundles that spoke of tranquility and healing. The nighttime sky overhead twinkled with promise, and under that celestial blanket, she felt a kinship with the spirits of the women who inspired her. They had, in their own time, carved paths amidst adversity, and now Alara felt ready to shape her own. In these moments of solitude, when the world faded and her focus narrowed to the delicate art of healing, Alara found herself whole, again, her laughter bubbling to the surface, her heart swelling with joy. She realized that every tincture made brought with it a dose of courage, each salve a symbol of the bravery she was learning to embody. The book, once an accidental discovery, now held the very essence of her transformation, as paths previously veiled began to elegantly unfurl before her, revealing glimpses of a future alive with possibility. Alara awoke each morning to the soft light filtering through her window, the sense of earth and greenery weaving a melody of hope through her home. The once damp shadows of self-doubt began to dissipate, replaced by the laughter and stories of women filling her modest space. The air was alive with chatter, a symphony of voices that resonated with familiarity and warmth. Word of her remedies had spread like wildfire, igniting a spark in the hearts of those who felt lost and alone. As she brewed her teas and prepared her poultices, Alara felt an exhilarating sense of purpose washing over her. Each mixture she crafted held not just the essence of nature, but also the stories of the women who sought her help. No longer did she hide behind the walls of her isolation. She had transformed her home into a beacon of solace where healing transcended mere physical ailments. It was a sanctuary where women reunited with their dreams and memories, reclaiming not just their bodies, but also their spirits. The women who visited her came from different walks of life, their hardships as varied as the herbs she tended to in her garden. Some bore the scars of lost loves, while others carried the weight of parental expectations that suffocated their aspirations. With each visitor, Alara listened intently as they poured out their hearts, her hands gently mixing the ingredients that would heal not only their bodies, but also the wounds etched deep within their souls. Alara's unwavering belief in the power of community brought an aura of sisterhood that thrived in her space. Together, they shared laughter and tears over steaming cups of herbal concoctions, each sip unearthing layers of strength within them. She guided them in the art of blending herbs, encouraging their innate talents and empowering them to take charge of their well-being. In this shared journey, they unearthed the simple joys of life, the thrill of creation, the beauty of vulnerability, and the unparalleled strength found in connection. As her community blossomed, Alara felt a growing responsibility to nurture their stories. On warm evenings, they gathered in her garden under the sprawling branches of the old oak tree that stood as a symbol of endurance and resilience. There, amidst the blossoms, Alara invited them to share their tales, creating a quilt of experiences that swirled around them like fireflies on a summer night. Secrets once guarded out of fear transformed into shared wisdom, empowering each woman to confront her past and illuminate her future. In these moments, Alara found herself invigorated by the collective spirit of thriving determination. She no longer felt like an outsider, but rather a cornerstone of an evolving legacy, one where each woman was both a healer and a healed. This newfound sisterhood was a testament to the healing power of empathy, and Alara, once defined by what she lacked, now embraced her new identity. The Barren woman had risen, a phoenix clothed in purpose and passion, and in the hearts of those she touched, she ignited a fire that could never be extinguished. As Alara's influence steadily grew, the villagers began to confront the complexity of their own beliefs. No longer were they mere spectators to her journey. They became active participants in its unfolding. In market squares and on sunlit porches, conversations flourished around the remarkable woman who had defied the limitations of their traditions. Awkwardness transformed into curiosity, and skepticism melted into a shared sense of purpose. Alara emerged not simply as a figure to admire, but as a catalyst for transformation within the community. One evening, while the sun dipped low, Casting a warm glow across the fields, a group of women gathered at the edge of the village. They reminisced about the unyielding grip of societal expectation, where motherhood had dictated identity and worth. Alara, with her radiant spirit, had pried open that door, revealing a world where ambitions, dreams, and individual choices could flourish. They found, in her story, the courage to voice their hidden aspirations, to unveil the talents honed in secret, and to prioritize their own narratives. In this shifting landscape, the tether between expectation and reality began to fray. Those who had belittled Alara ventured toward her, not just as admirers but as learners, eager to peel back the layers of their own conditioning. They asked questions they once dared not speak, their eyes glinting with the light of newfound understanding. In her presence, vulnerability became a strength, and the weight of past judgments began to dissipate, replaced by a collective ambition to rewrite their stories. Men, too, found themselves drawn into the current of change. Conversations once dominated by the expectations of masculinity, of strength and provision, now included reflections on compassion, support, and partnership. Alara's courage rekindled the notion that embracing emotion did not diminish one's character, but rather enriched it. As they gathered to share their struggles and dreams, a deeper bond emerged between the men and women of the village, one built on mutual respect and shared aspirations. Alara knew, however, that accepting this shift was not without its struggles. In the unyielding fabric of tradition, threads still clung stubbornly to old beliefs. Some whispered that the changes were merely a passing storm, that the tide would soon retreat, leaving behind remnants of the old ways. Yet, she remained undeterred, understanding that true transformation was often met with resistance. Each voice that rallied for acceptance and change became a stitch in the new tapestry they were weaving, a tapestry that embraced diversity, creativity, and strength in unity. As the villagers gathered under the stars to celebrate moments of triumph, their voices harmonized in a collective cheer for Alara. In those moments, she understood that she was not just a solitary figure, but the embodiment of a movement that sought to empower each individual story. Every heartfelt cheer resonated with the echoes of past doubts, weaving their histories into a narrative of triumph. Alara was not just redefining womanhood, she was sculpting a new vision for their entire community, one where courage surpassed expectation and authenticity became the foundation of their lives. Alara's garden had flourished, not just in the vibrant blooms that caressed the sun, but in the very fabric of the village's spirit. As years turned into memories, cradled in the hearts of the villagers, the essence of her legacy grew, intertwining with the natural cycles of life and renewal. Each season brought a new wave of inspiration, a reminder that strength could be cultivated, nurtured, and shared like the vibrant petals that danced in the breeze. In her absence, the stories of Alara's courage transformed into living lessons. Mothers began to gather their daughters under the sheltering branches of the old oak tree, recounting tales not solely of Alara's victories, but of her vulnerabilities. They spoke of the days when the shadows threatened to consume her, when doubt curled its fingers around her heart, yet she stood resilient, the beacon of hope for all. This sharing of her truth created a bond among the women, an understanding that struggle too could transcend into strength, that every tear shed watered the roots from which they all would grow. The garden itself became a meeting place, a sanctuary for those burdened by their own difficulties. Women would come, clutching their fears like fragile glass, only to find solace amidst the blooms that whispered the strength of the earth. They learned through Alara's story that vulnerability was not a word to fear. Rather, it was a bridge to authenticity. As they toiled together, planting seeds, they transformed their grief into hope, crafting a narrative that highlighted their shared experiences. Among the blooming flowers, where once only thorns had thrived, each woman began to see her reflection. Stories of hardship were laid bare, a collection of pain woven into a tapestry colored with resilience. Kindness replaced the ridicule of the past, and laughter now rang out as a joyous symphony, resonating with the echoes of Alara's teachings. The villagers began to foster a culture where kindness and empowerment took root, an unwritten law that shunned judgment and embraced the journey of every individual. As the women gathered for their seasonal festivals, the essence of Alara coursed through the air like a fragrant breeze, reminding them of their collective power. They adorned their hair with flowers as tributes, celebrating not just their individual journeys, but the legacy of sisterhood that Alara had so fiercely nurtured. Each bloom became a symbol of their stories filled with laughter, sorrow, and triumph, stitched together to form an intricate quilt of community strength. Alara had taught them that there was beauty in the struggle, that the scars they bore were marks of their resilience. In her memory, the village thrived on the belief that every woman, in her unique path, carried within her the potential to illuminate the way for others. As the petals fell gently to the ground, they stirred memories of Alara's laughter, intertwining them with the promise of tomorrow, each garden, each heart, a legacy of strength enduring through time.